the only baseball show on WMSC. But we're very happy to be here. I'm here with my co-host and a couple of other guests, which we'll get to in just a second. But first of all, my co-host, Anthony Walsh. Anthony, how we doing, bud?
I'm doing okay. Not thrilled about the latest Mets news. We'll get into that. But
No.
But, otherwise, I'm doing all right.
Then we have our newest ADJs, freshmen, Tim and Tyler. Tim, how we doing?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Fabulous. And Tyler, how are we doing over there?
Pretty good. The Yankees won, so.
I can't really see your face. There's a screen here, but I think none of our listeners can see our faces, so that works perfectly. Well, we have a great show for you today. We'll be talking about the Mets, probably the Phillies, and we'll be talking a little bit about the Yankees. But first of all, Tim and Tyler are two Yankees fans, and you guys got to see now Aaron Judge 53rd home run. What was it, against the Red Sox last night?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys are big baseball fans. Did you think, before, the little Paw Patrol curse, he couldn't hit for like a month or whatever, that he was going to reach to the 63?
Yeah, I did. I mean, it was a little bit of doubt while the slump was going on, but Tim and I were actually thankful enough to go to the game where he hit the grand slam to break out of that slump, and the atmosphere in that stadium, it just erupted. It was amazing. That was a playoff atmosphere right there.
Yeah, that atmosphere was crazy. I went to a game in 2020, a playoff game in 2022, and that probably topped the energy level in that building. It was pretty insane.
Well, my roommate Luke Sirianni, who I love so dearly, is a huge Yankees fan, and he once spent, he spent like, what do you say? He spent like upwards of $200, right, to go to a Yankees playoff game. In 22, it was against the Astros. They got one hit. So he doesn't go to baseball. He doesn't go to Yankees playoff games anymore due to that. And that was the day they got eliminated. So that was even better. I was laughing because I've been to Phillies games, and they usually don't lose, except for the World Series one that I went to. But anyways, Judge has looked back, and I mean, we talked about this before, but quickly, I mean, from a Yankees standpoint, we talked about this last week from a Mets standpoint. All right, Juan Soto has yet to be paid. Do you guys think he'll stay a Yankee?
Yeah, 100%. I think
Wow.
Brian Cashman's going to get it done. I think he's at the point in the season where the Yankees are pushing to make a playoff run, and they're doing, you could say, a solid job at it because, they're winning series. They keep winning series. At this point in the season, they're not losing series. They're dropping a couple games here and there, but I think Soto's just going to love the environment in New York. He loves playing with Aaron Judge. He loves being a Yankee. He loves the pinstripes. I think he'll re-sign with the Yankees.
I think for Soto, it all depends on how the Yankees can perform in the playoffs. If they're able to get to that World Series, make it even just competitive, make it a 7-game series, I think Soto will resign even if they don't end up winning the World Series. It all depends on how they do in the playoffs, if they're able to come through adversity, get those comeback wins like they did Friday against the Red Sox. If they're able to make those comeback wins in the playoffs, I think he'll resign.
I agree with that about the playoffs, but I'm not sure if Steinbrenner's going to pony up the money. He hasn't proven it to me yet that he's willing to give out that kind of contract. Like, this is going to be upwards of $500 million. It's going to be that. So will he do it? I mean, he should, obviously. But I do agree the playoffs is a big point because if the Yankees, go down in flames in the playoffs, and let's say Soto has a bad series and maybe gets booed, which could easily happen, maybe there's a little bit of bad blood there. I don't know. But they got to pay him, and I don't know if Hal's going to do it. I know his father would. But it's going to be interesting. If he's not going to do it, someone else will. The Dodgers or the Mets. I really don't think any other team, but someone's going to have to pay him upwards of $500 million, which is something that we've never even seen before.
And I think on top of that, I mean, Anthony said himself, his father would have done it. His father definitely would have done it. His father's biggest regret is not signing Reggie Jackson again. And I feel like, if anything, this might be another Reggie Jackson. In my eyes. Because, first of all, though, if he goes anywhere else, my opinion is he's going to have a lot less fun. Because he has Aaron Judge hitting behind him. Nobody's going to walk you if Aaron Judge is hitting behind you. You get to do what you love and hit the baseball as far as you can. But that's just that. We'll have to see. That's one of those things. Now, as we move from the Bronx over to the Queens. Well, actually, over to Philadelphia. But Francisco Lindor goes down with an injury. He got hurt in the first or second game?
Well, he's had said that he had been feeling his back a little bit bothering him even before the play at second base a couple days ago, where he kind of came up at an odd angle and stepped on the base kind of weird. But, yeah, it's a bad sign. The only positive I will say is that Luis Angel Acuna has looked pretty solid so far. I know he went 0 for yesterday, but as a young guy coming up his first game, I think he's looked good at the plate. But, yeah, bottom line is if you don't have Lindor, we're not going anywhere. We have to wait for the MRI results, see what happens. I do think it was pretty stupid to put him out there yesterday. I really don't know what the point of that was. He came out in like the second or third inning. But you just got to wait and see. It's one of those things where, like, if he's hurt, the season's pretty much over. The Braves are too good if you don't have Lindor. And it goes back to what we were talking about last week with the MVP argument. MVP is most valuable player. You take away Lindor, he's their most valuable player. I'm just saying. I had to throw that in.
No. Honestly, I feel like the MVP award, which we talked about last year, has turned from a, most valuable to just best.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference. I don't always think that the most valuable is the best, so it doesn't always correlate. Like, you're right. I do think Lindor is the most valuable, but if you're looking at the whole thing, Ohtani's most likely the best. If you take away Ohtani, though, from the Dodgers, it's not like they're losing the division.
Lindor's the most valuable to his team.
Mm-hmm.
Ohtani's the better overall player, but again, only hitting. But Lindor is the most valuable to his team, in my humble opinion.
Let me ask you this really quickly.
Okay.
If, let's say Lindor had like a Trey Turner kind of glove, like he just really probably like one of the worser fielders at the shortstop position.
Okay.
Would you still consider him the MVP?
No.
Okay.
To me,
that's
the
because
defense is what matters.
that's the correct answer.
Yeah, he's a Gold Glove defender, so that you have to take that into account when you're thinking about the MVP.
Okay, interesting. And I mean, there's been a huge comparison back to, Lindor has kind of taken the reins of the best shortstop in New York. Ooh, ow, that hurt. Hit the mic. But Lindor has taken the reins of most valuable shortstop in New York. All right. Anthony Volpe, on the other hand, has kind of fallen off that cliff a little bit. And we were talking about him, last year?
Yeah, we talked
last year. We were talking about him last year. Like, not this year as much. But, from a Yankees standpoint, Yankees fan standpoint, all the hype around Volpe, all of this, he's the next Jeter. He's going to be, he's going to save the Yankees. And he's not really doing anything anymore. I know he started off hot, but from a Yankees fan standpoint, how have you guys seen Volpe?
I've just kind of seen him as he's stayed kind of not consistent throughout the whole season, but in the beginning of the season, like you said, he looked hot. But then once it got to like mid-season, he kind of started to look like him, like his rookie self, where he struggled, and he had, I think it was the second lowest OPS in the league mid-season. So he just has to stay consistent. If he doesn't have to be that beginning season form, if he's anywhere between that, I think that'll do for the Yankees. But like Lindor, as you said before, the defense has been great for Volpe. I believe I saw a stat yesterday that said Volpe has made 75% of under 80% catch probabilities, which that's one of the top in the league. So I think if Volpe's defense can save his offense, that'll be better for him.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tyler, 100%. But from a Yankee fan standpoint, when you look at, I know you guys were talking about Lindor before, when you look at the comparisons, like Yankee fans would compare Lindor and Volpe. I always thought Lindor was a better shortstop than Volpe. I wasn't one of those Yankee fans that would go, Volpe's a better shortstop than Lindor. He's not. You look, Lindor is, this season especially, going for MVP. Probably won't win it at this point, especially because Shohei Ohtani, and then just the season Ohtani's having, and now the injury. We don't know how that's going to affect him. But Volpe has had his fair share of moments as a Yankee. I enjoy watching him, and I think he brings a lot to this Yankee team and helps them out a lot. But, yeah, he's had his fair share of struggles. But I would love to see him just stay our shortstop.
That's fair. And also, to be fair to him, he's only 23 years old. And he's not getting a lot of help on that infield in terms of defensive ability. So, I'm not saying he's going to be the next Lindor, but he's impressed me defensively, and he has shown flashes at the plate. The bottom line is he's going to be going into the playoffs now, and he's going to make his, if he's going to make his money in the next few years, he's going to make his money now in the playoffs. So he's got an opportunity. But again, I think it's important to keep in mind he's 23 years old. He's only been in the big leagues. This is his second year. He didn't even play all that much last year. So I say give him some time. He's got a lot of talent. The bat, I understand this concern, but maybe he could turn into the next Lindor. I don't think he will be, but you never know.
No, but in good regards, he's bounced almost 40 points up with his average. Last year he hit 209. This year he's hitting 248. The power is kind of gone, but I imagine that's the same thing as what's going on in Philly with Kyle Schwarber, where they kind of told him, like, we just want you to make contact, because when you make contact, it looks good. Stop striking out, please. And then, that works. That takes away a lot of power. Kyle Schwarber was hitting like 40 home runs, but he couldn't bat over 200 for the life of him. Now he's batting 250, and he has like 30 home runs. He's probably going to end with that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's that. But going back to the Mets. We're always talking about the Mets. Anthony, a rough series. Who do you guys have coming up?
We have, let me see.
The Nationals.
Nationals. Yes. Yeah.
So coming up with the Nationals next. Nationals, then a 4-game set against the Phils, then a 3-game set against the Brew Crew, or Braves, Brew Crew, season over. You guys, it's getting very close. Right now, Braves have the lead in the wild card.
Oh, they're tied.
They're tied.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they lost last night.
Yep.
Did you see how they lost?
That
2 outs
inning
was ridiculous.
Yeah.
7 runs in the 9th. Talk about a team imploding when 2 players get injured. That's literally what's going on in Atlanta right now. And I think the two of us can agree that we've never been happier about it. But with what? A little over 13 games left.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about playoff possession?
Like I said, it really just goes all on Francisco Lindor. I feel like that's kind of the easy answer. But if he's here, we could still squeak out a third wild card spot. I'll tell you what also concerns me is Edwin Diaz. Not just because he blew the game yesterday. Just overall, he hasn't looked good. He shows flashes at times where he hits 100 and the slider's working. And other times he goes out there and it just looks like 2019 Edwin Diaz all over again. And you can't have that inconsistency if you're going to be a good playoff team, at least. And with this, how close this race is, maybe a playoff team at all. So, yeah, the bottom line is this. Lindor's got to be healthy. Diaz has to be Diaz. And if those two things happen, then I'm totally confident that this team could go into the playoffs and maybe even win a wild card series. If those two things don't happen, they probably don't even make the playoffs. So a lot goes on this MRI of results that we'll either get later today or tomorrow. I think that's kind of going to be like the Aaron Rodgers moment of last year, only later in the season, where you know how your the fate's going to be before the season's even over, based on this one injury result.
I think that's fair. The Nationals, they've been all right. They've looked a lot better than they did,
They're slowly improving.
They're slowly improving, which is faster than some other teams. But, they still haven't looked spectacular. Oh, wow. This is something that I do love about the Mets. I'm sorry. I'm going to go on a tangent for a second. Mets tickets, if I want to go see the Mets right now in a playoff position, I can go, today for $7.
Really?
I will take that any day.
Well, I guess because it's a Monday night, but...
Yeah, I guess so. You want to know when football season starts? Yeah. Next Sunday, it's $15 to see the Phillies and the Mets.
That's crazy.
That's a playoff game right there. That is a playoff game. I love baseball. When football season starts, that's when you start going to games. Because nobody wants to be there.
Let me ask all you guys, and especially you, Vincent, because you're the Philly fan. Who's winning that Philly-Mets series later? That could end up determining if the Mets be in the playoffs or not. I don't know.
I'll start. Phillies, as a diehard Phillies fan, that series was not good. It really wasn't a good series. I'm not saying that the Mets, we shouldn't have played them closely. I'm just saying, yesterday, it was Christopher Sanchez against David Peterson, right? And Christopher Sanchez has looked really good, and I know David Peterson has looked great.
Yeah.
Right? But, every game it felt like you got into the 6th inning and you got, 1 or 2 hits on the board. I think every game they hit under the 200 mark for the game.
Oh, besides Bryce Harper, it was nobody really.
You want to know what? Bryce Harper had the 2 home runs. That that was his first time he didn't since like August 9th.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. Every once in a while, you'll see there's these huge spans for the Phillies where you'll see Bryce Harper and he'll look amazing. He looks like he's unstoppable any which way. But then you get that like one game and you're like, where'd this guy come from? Like, what is he doing here? Because you'll get like these like month-long spans where it's like, I don't really think Bryce Harper is that guy anymore. Like, that age is kind of getting to him. But then he'll go right back. So I think those 2 home runs was him kind of being like, I'm back. But if a 4-game set, I wouldn't be surprised if they split it. I really wouldn't. The offense looks so like drained in those last 2 games. The 4 runs from the Mets was crucial, but I was surprised that the Phillies scored 5. Regardless that they came back, I'm surprised they scored 5. I don't know.
That's fair. I think the Mets could come away with it if Lindor's healthy. I'm not saying they'll sweep, but I think they could win the series.
Interesting.
What about you guys?
It does.
Yeah, I agree with you, Vincent. I think I think they could split. It's a very good possibility that there's going to be a split in that series.
Yeah.
It's obviously a big series for the Mets. I think the Mets are at a point where they have, even if they lose Lindor, like say next weekend, the Phillies go back or go to Queens, and Lindor is not on the Mets. I still think there's going to be something. There's going to be a fire under that team. Lindor is going to be hurt. I think they're not going to have enough to take the series, but they'll have enough to split the series.
Interesting. And especially, I mean, from a Phillies perspective, Phillies have a 3-game set against the Brewers prior to that. And they're putting out Suarez, Wheeler, and then Nola. So the Mets aren't going to face him. I mean, they might face Ranger, but that would be it. You're not going to face Wheeler. You're not going to face Nola. And the Mets crushed Nola the other day.
And Severino's slated to start the series against the Phillies, and he's been money this year. So
I wouldn't be surprised. But I mean, you guys don't understand, but I know this for a fact that Aaron Nola is a wonderful chef. He's superb at making meatballs. They're just right down the plate. Right down the plate.
I thought you were being serious for a second. I was like, that can't be left field.
We're going to take a quick little break. When we come back, we have a game that we're going to be playing, and we're going to be talking playoff predictions. So, if you'd like, you can say this has been the first half of the Walkoff on WMSC Upper Montclair. All right. I got my game ready. Is it the year's game?
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you.
explain it to me.
On erratic avenue,
Like, oh, the Reds, like, everybody's like, oh, the Red Sox and the Mets when they play each other. Oh, the Yankees suck.
Under the machine gun silent.
All right, actually,
All
both
the
you guys.
battles lost and won. Say you gotta live for fun. Looks like we
And welcome back, everybody. This is the Walkoff on WMSC Upper Montclair. We are in the second half of our show. It's 10:29 for those who are listening. It's the only baseball show on WMSC, and we are proud to be here to talk about baseball. Again, I'm Vincent Picone. I'm with Anthony Walsh, Tim David, and Tyler Copen. Right? I got the names right?
Yeah.
Look at me. Look at me. I'm proud of myself.
Great memory.
Oh, my goodness. I'm insane. Oh, yes. Wow, that felt good. Well, we are back, and for our frequent listeners, we have my favorite game is Name That Year. Now, I've been saying for the longest time that I need to make like a sound for it,
Yeah.
which I have not done.
Oh, I thought you were going to reveal a sound.
No, I'm so sorry. But I mean, I'm making our Showmo, so I'll probably make the sound with it. Hopefully, we'll figure it out. If not, then I'll every week I'll say again and again. I wish I made that. All right. So, for listeners that are new, we'll be naming teams that won their respective awards, and our co-hosts Tim and Tyler will have to guess which year is it. This year is a fun year. I'm going to be honest. We're going to go category by category. Honestly, I mean, I wasn't really watching baseball that much this year, but we all know how legendary one of these players were that year, if that doesn't give a hint. Although I imagine it won't. Starting off with the MVP award, looking at the American League side, it was a Los Angeles Angel.
Oh, boy.
Okay. For the National League side, it was not too far away, a Los Angeles Dodger.
Okay.
All right. We've seen it. We've seen a couple. From Los Angeles. No playoffs, and not this year again. Any guesses? Looking around the room.
In the early 2010s.
It is.
Okay. What about you guys? Got any guesses?
Can I say 2015?
No.
I'm going to go with 2012.
I mean, you're there.
It's 2013.
No.
2011?
It's gotta
No.
be. No, really?
Moving on to the Cy Young Award. The American League was won by a Cleveland Indian at the time. And then the National League was won by a Dodger. Once again.
2014.
Bingo. He's got it. All right. Can you name?
I don't know. Well, the Angels got to be Trout.
Bingo.
The Dodgers.
I'll give you if you can guess, I'll give you the Rookie of the Years too. The White Sox and Mets. And the World Series champ was the San Francisco Giants.
Mets is 2014. Was DeGrom considered a rookie?
Yeah.
In 2014? Okay.
Mhm.
It's
That's one.
2014.
So you got two.
And what was the other one? What was the other team?
White Sox.
White Sox.
He won an MVP.
Oh man. You guys got any guesses? It's gotta
What are we missing? We're missing
MVP of 2014.
You need
is the
the
White Sox.
National League MVP, the National League Cy Young, the American
National
League.
League Cy Young would be Clayton Kershaw.
Bingo.
Okay.
the Cy Young Award for the American League, which was a Guardian, and then the White Sox.
Corey
Kluber. There we go.
And then we're missing the dot. Would the MVP happen to be Clayton? No, it wouldn't be Clayton. Oh, would it be Clayton
It was
Kershaw?
Clayton Kershaw,
Okay.
which was why it was so cool. He won MVP
Wait, so who's
and
the
Cy
White
Young.
Sox?
The White Sox was Jose Abreu, who won Rookie of the Year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He won MVP
Not
in
good.
2020 when what's his face won? Freddie Freeman for the
Yeah.
Braves.
Yeah.
For the Braves at the time. The Braves. Right? Yeah. Yes. And then World Series MVP. A fun year for baseball for sure. That was right before the Royals won the series, which was awesome. And speaking of the Royals, this is the first time since 2015 that the Royals are over 500. Isn't that insane? Wow. I mean, in baseball, I usually don't think of teams that just implode after winning the series. But now we've seen two. I mean, we've seen the Royals, and now we're looking at the Nationals.
Yeah. Well, the Royals have a lot to thank to Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for him, they would be nowhere near this position.
Oh, such an exciting player. It's really fun. I am gonna play the name that team game,
Okay.
the starting pitcher game, but I need to get my stuff up. So Anthony, I'm gonna
Playing
hand the
about
mic
the Mets?
over to you really quickly, and I would love to hear what you think about the Mets and New York baseball.
Okay. Well, all right. Let me think of some questions that I could ask you guys about the Mets. Well, just get an outside perspective, Yankee perspective. Where do you guys rank the Mets? First of all, do you guys think the Mets are going to make the playoffs?
It all depends on Lindor and
Okay.
what happens with him with his injury. Because if the MRI comes back negative and Lindor is able to play in these last couple of series, I think if he's able to play for that Philadelphia series and the Atlanta series, I think they will make the playoffs. But if he's unavailable, it's kind of on the fence.
Okay. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be tough. I think Lindor would be huge for them to come back, but the Atlanta Braves always I feel like they're just a pain in the New York Mets' side
True.
a lot of the time, just because for some obviously they've dealt with their injuries this year, but they have Chris Sale, and a
Mhm.
couple other players that have stepped up huge for the Braves, but I think the Braves are gonna take that spot. The Mets probably will not make the playoffs, but
Okay.
that's just because the Braves just do, for some reason, they just do what the Atlanta Braves do. It's just something that they do every year, no matter what happens, whether they have injuries or whether they have a healthy team. They just find a way. They always find a way.
So what about, do you think Diaz is going to be a large factor in not making the playoffs? He's going to blow a lot of games, especially that last second to last series of the year for the Mets. They play the Braves. So do you think Diaz is going to blow some of those games, or do you think it's going to be a 10-0 loss for the Mets?
I think he's going to step up. I think he might blow one game, but other than that, he's going to be solid. I think
Okay.
if he has that fire underneath him, he has the trumpets playing behind him, I think Diaz is going to be fired up, and he's really going to step up his game.
How about you? What do you think?
I think Diaz will be fine for you guys. I think
Really? Okay.
as a Yankee fan, we've had our fair share of experiences this year with a closer, and
Clay Holmes.
yeah, exactly, yeah. But I think you guys will be just fine with Edwin Diaz coming in and slamming the door on whoever their opponent may be.
Well, I will give a shout out to Frank the Tank, who thinks that after Timmy Trumpet performed, that it was all downhill for Edwin Diaz. The numbers don't lie, by the way.
The numbers really don't
The
lie
numbers
from
don't
that.
lie. Ever since Timmy Trumpet came out there and played that, he's just been terrible since then. I don't know if there's something to it. Frank's on the money sometimes.
No, he's right on the money. And it's the same thing for the Phillies coming out of the London series.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they were playing under 500 ball for the longest time, and I still think they are. Well, folks, I am ready for Name That Team with the starting five. This is my favorite game, by far. Oh, everybody, really quickly, pause. We're going to take a break from baseball for just a second. My cousin has offered me a trade. Should I decline it or not? Matthew Stafford and, I don't know, Alec Pierce, who I've never heard of.
Neither have I.
He
He's
had a big touchdown. He had I think it was a 65-yard touchdown against.
Alex Pierce did?
Yeah, it was the one where Richardson slipped and then threw like the
Okay.
Oh,
69 yards in the air or something.
All right,
like
so
that.
he didn't mean to throw it to him, is what I'm hearing from this. And I would be losing DK Metcalf and Tony Pollard. This sounds like an awful deal.
No.
This sounds like
Yeah,
an awful deal. All right, Olivia,
Don't do
I love you. You're my cousin. You're amazing. But
Olivia.
I want new players. All right, I'm not a fool.
Olivia's trying to fleece you over there.
Olivia's trying to fleece me. Olivia is a huge Eagles fan. We're a big Eagles family. Except for my yeah, guys, I'm so sorry that we win games. I apologize to my Jets and Giants fans out there.
Wow. Subtle shot at the Jets. We have
I'm
Aaron
sorry.
Rodgers
I'm really
now, baby.
sorry.
Come on.
Listen. All I'm saying is, compared to the Jets and Giants, we have just as many wins, and we've played one less game
We have Aaron Rodgers, and he's on a mission.
to tear his other ACL.
Oh, come on.
We have Daniel Jones.
Oh,
Oh,
Danny
I'm
Dimes.
jealous.
Danny Dimes. My favorite. Well, it's time for Name That Team with the starting five. All right, so what I'll be doing for you is I'll be giving you the teams that the starting five played for and, like, what position they're in. Not what position, but, like, what position on the starting rotation they are. All right?
Okay.
Guesses can – the really only guess I'll give you is, like, which league is it in.
Okay.
All right? I'll narrow it down to 15 teams for you.
Okay.
All right? But last time, I couldn't say that it was like a pitcher or anything or it's the same person. I'll help. Don't worry. This is a harder game. We're going to start off with our number one starter. For our fans listening, feel free to guess. Feel free to get excited. And if you figure it out, call the number 973-655-4256, which is the WMSC radio station, to put your guess in. Here we go. Starting off with the starter. The number one. Started at the White Sox. Now he's on this team.
Okay.
Anybody? Nobody? Somebody?
Oh, you got to.
Padres.
Really?
Oh, my goodness.
Did
He
he get
got it on the first one.
Oh, my. Oh, wow.
That was wonderful.
This is insane. I'm going to get kicked off of this show because of how bad I am.
Well, you want to know? It makes it. I'm going to be honest with you. Tim's wearing a Padres jersey right now, but I put on like a random team generator, and it gave me Padres.
This is what you were doing during that time? You should have went with like the Oakland A's or something. We would have been sitting
Oh
there
my
forever.
God, we would have never got it. JP Sears would have been the only guess, and that's because they play for the Yankees. That's the only reason I know who it is. Man, these games have been cut short. Usually when it's me and Anthony, we're on here for like 10 minutes.
We got a 20-minute, yeah.
And we get a
segment out
great
of it.
segment out of it. I have no idea who that is. We have to like start narrowing it down to division. And you guys are too good. Too good. Maybe you guys should be hosting the show. Maybe.
Well, we could always talk
Maybe.
about how bad
We graduate in 2 years, so it's all yours.
we could always talk about how bad the Atlanta Braves were last night more. If
Oh,
you
my
want.
goodness. Well, I would like to mention one other thing. Roberto Clemente Day was yesterday, honoring
yes.
a huge legend. I mean, we saw a lot of players rep gear. Salvador Perez was one of the big ones that,
All the Clemente winners, yeah.
Oh, my
21 on
goodness.
this shirt.
Deservingly so. Roberto Clemente, such an incredible player, cut short by the roughness of just life, but a great person, great human being, and I'm pretty sure the only player in baseball history to end exactly on 3,000 hits.
Yeah. Sadly enough, too. I think he got the 3,000th hit against the Mets. It was like either his last game or one of his last games before he tragically passed away. But yeah, it's always like a reminder. Every year they do that where they wear the 21. I'll be honest, I forget I'm like, wait a minute, why are they wearing 21? Then I realize, oh yeah. But it's a good history lesson too, because I remember when I was younger and they did it, like I didn't know who Roberto Clemente was, and I learned about baseball history and how great of a player he was, and it just goes to show you. I mean, there's a lot of. Have you guys heard of Roberto Clemente? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it always goes to show you there's more to learn about baseball history. It also goes to show you the amazing figures that have been in baseball history. As much as people like to pan, 1940s, 50s baseball, he played later than that, but still, there's still so many great figures in that era, and Roberto Clemente was one of them.
Yes, I mean, truly a legend of the game. He led the league in batting average 4 times. I mean, we've never seen numbers like this, and we thought we were going to see numbers like this year. We are not, or at least last year. He hit 351 in 61. He hit 339, which led the lead in 64, 329 the year after, and 357 in 67. That's when he won MVP, too. And he led the league with 209 hits. And when he hit 339, he also left with 211.
You think he's the best Pirate of all time?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. Well, it's either him or it's Bonds.
I give it to Clemente any day.
I'd
I
give
don't
it
know
to
what you
Clemente.
guys think, but
I mean, I know we're talking about the Pirates, but Bonds had 2 different Hall of Fame careers. One when he was with the Pirates, and one with he's with the Giants. But I think maybe this is just I wouldn't say bias, but like just my age. I think I would take Barry Bonds.
I'm not going to lie to you. I just looked up greatest Pirates of all time. It gave me Blackbeard. I just wanted to make sure that I was right on my statistics and all that. But, I mean, if you're looking at greatest Pirates of all time, Roberto Clemente is, I mean, you're looking at these names. There's not really anyone else that, I mean, Ralph Kiner played in the 40s to the 50s. Kutch. Although I feel like I love Kutch. I think Kutch is great. This is another good conversation. Looking at Kutch, Zach Greinke, and Joey Votto. Joey Votto retired. You know, he's done.
Mm-hmm.
But once Mad Dog Russo said that those 3 are in the Hall of Fame of very good. Now, Joey Votto doesn't think so. He thinks at least Greinke is in the Hall of Fame. He doesn't think he's a Hall of Famer. But looking at those 3 players, do you think they're Hall of Famers? Andrew McCutchen. I feel like Andrew McCutchen, from my standpoint, Andrew McCutchen, an amazing player, but it didn't last. It didn't last.
yeah, that and I don't know. And he really didn't have all that much postseason success. Not that he was in it a ton. So I would say no. I would agree with Mad Dog Hall, very good. Votto, it's so tough because these guys were really, really good players. Also, I mean, these are points we've made many times, but the Hall of Fame has expanded, and they've allowed guys like Scott Rowland in. So it's also hard for me to say, well, no to McCutchen and Votto, but yes to Scott Rowland. So I guess with the way that the Hall of Fame is now, yeah. But in my ideal Hall of Fame, it would be guys that are only difference makers, like pure difference makers. Roberto Clemente, Tom Seaver, guys like that. And Willie Mays, obviously, you could make an argument as the best baseball player of all time, who passed away this summer. Do you really look at McCutchen and Votto and say that? I don't. I say they're very good. I don't say they're Hall of Fame, but in today's Hall of Fame, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. When you look at Greinke, his career ERA, it's a 3.49, which, I mean, that's like nowadays, that's pretty average. I mean, you have some very good pitchers who career ERA, they're sub 3, they're in the 2.8s. So I think Votto, it all depends on kind of the impact they had on their team. Like McCutchen, he was there for a little while. He was a good player, but like you said, Vincent, he did have like a short stint of where he was good. He didn't really do much else besides that. Votto, he was with the Reds for a while, but never really got anything out of it. Never had much like success team-wise, although he was a great player. I believe Votto will be a Hall of Famer. And then Greinke, it kind of all depends who's going up against him in the ballot at the time.
I'll say this. I mean, what was his career ERA, Tyler?
3.49.
3.49. I think one Hall of Famer that does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame is Jack Morris. He had a career ERA of 3.9. The only reason he's in the Hall of Fame is because of the World Series game when it was Twins versus somebody. I don't remember. Do you remember?
Sometimes they get
Twins versus Giants,
if you're
and
good
he
enough-
pitched 10 inning shutout.
If you're good enough in the playoffs, sometimes they let you in. And I mean, I get it, but like again, what we said here, like Greinke, McCutchen, Votto, all 3 of them didn't do all that much in the playoffs. I mean, really, when you think about it, and that's like that should be, at least for me, a big factor in this is that if you were okay, let's say they have their numbers the way they are now, which McCutchen, I have on my screen right now, career 274 hitter, under the 3,000 hit mark, which is a big mark for hitters if you're going to get into the Hall of Fame or not. But let's just say they were great in the playoffs. Okay, I could see it. But like a lot of these guys really weren't huge difference makers when they made the playoffs. And granted, all 3 of them didn't make it that often. But still, when you have that opportunity, if you do have a 9-inning or 10-inning shutout, which is very rare, or even if you do, hit 500 in a series, which is tough, but still, that's what a Hall of Famer is not meant to be easy. So I really look at like let's just take a guy like Daniel Murphy. If Daniel Murphy were to hit every year like he did in the 2015 playoffs, I'd say, well, he wasn't that great overall of a player, but he was clutch in the playoffs, and maybe he should make it. Now, obviously, that didn't happen. I'm just using an example. These guys didn't have that, and I think that's a really, at least for me anyway, that's a big mark against them. At that same time, they did have a really good career, so you could make a case for them to get in. It's just tough now when you open the Pandora's box of letting a Scott Rowland in. Now it's very tough. Either of these three guys can say, you don't think I had a better career than Scott Rowland? And everybody would say, well, yeah, of course you did. And then why am I not in? So
I mean, don't get me wrong. Scott Rowland was a great player.
I keep bringing up him. I want to pick on him, but he wasn't that great of a player.
If you frequently listen to the show, the big things that we always say is, fluke seasons is the 21 Giants.
Yep.
Players that do not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, Scott Rowland.
Yep.
And what else do we say? We say something else.
I don't know.
We say a lot of
stuff
things.
over and over.
But Greinke had a 4.14 ERA, 4-6 in the playoffs career wise, but logged a little over 100 innings, 113. I'll say this for Greinke and for Votto, it's MVP winners. That's huge, but I seriously think that you need to dominate over a long period of time. Which is why I think Mike Trout should be in the Hall of Fame. He's probably not going to see that much game time. He'll never hit. Mike Trout right now, in my eyes, he's a Hall of Famer. He's never going to hit 2,000 hits, which seems to be at least a requirement now. You need to at least hit that. But how can you take away a 3-time MVP winner, a Rookie of the Year, an 11-time All-Star, 9-time Silver Slugger, a 2-time All-Star MVP, and a Wilson overall Defensive Player of the Year?
Well,
from him.
I'm with you on that, and it's one of these rare examples where, yeah, of a guy that doesn't have that many hits, I will say yes, just because of his accolades and how. He was the best player in baseball for a solid 7-8 year stretch. So, what do you guys think, though? Hall of Famer or not?
I think he 100% deserves it. I do think we are being robbed just because of his injuries of potentially the best player of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that might seem outlandish, but I truly think if Trout was fully healthy throughout his whole career, which no player really is, especially nowadays, a lot of players are getting injured or some type of injury that sets them back. But I think if he was healthy for a good, let's say 85% of his career, he would 100% be the best player of all time.
It brings in the question, if Trout and Ohtani were healthy at the same time and they played together for an entire season, do you think the Angels were World Series contenders?
No. They never had the
They
pitching.
didn't have pitching.
Yeah. They never had not only the starting pitching, but the bullpen pitching. So, we never really saw that. Their years overlapped a little bit, and one or the other was hurt, mostly Trout. But, as crazy as it is to say that, because you put that in almost any other team, they're World Series contenders at least. But the Angels can't get out of their own way. Every single time they were anywhere near contention, they didn't have the starters, they didn't have the bullpen. But, yeah.
Yeah. And I think looking at Trout, him and Bryce Harper kind of came up at the same time.
Yeah.
Bryce Harper is a year younger than him. But you see the numbers that Bryce Harper's putting up. And listen, when he came to Philadelphia, his career kind of blossomed out, I'd say. He looked a lot better than he did in years past. Though, he was no Mike Trout. He was never a Mike Trout. And you see the numbers he's putting up. Imagine the numbers that Mike Trout would be putting up. This is not like a David Wright case or Johan Santana case where it's the injuries took his Hall of Fame career away.
Yeah.
I feel like this is more like a Griffey case where it's yeah, he had injuries. We didn't get to see the full extent of him, but he still lived up to the hype of, being the best player in baseball. He couldn't live up to it for as long as we wanted him to.
Yeah.
That's
From
my opinion.
2011 when he came up, really 2012 when he really full blossomed, till 2019, 2020, he was an MVP almost every year. Silver Slugger every year, All-Star every year. There's not much really else you could say. I will say about David Wright, though, I think he's really the marquee example of if his back didn't give out, which is another reason I'm so worried about the Lindor back situation. It gives me flashbacks to David. But if his back didn't give out, he was a surefire Hall of Famer because he did great in the playoffs, and he's another guy that hardly had any opportunity. He's just had a career that was cut short. So it's like you said, everybody deals with the injuries, but some guys are just plagued with them their whole career. And it stinks to see, especially in a sport where it's not like football where you would think guys could be a little bit more healthy. It still takes a toll on the body.
It takes a lot, especially on the back, which is what Mike Trout has. He has like some very, very rare back disease that limits his playing time. What was it? 2023, right? Last year where Judge got like hurt. But he was like on pace. Like he was hitting more home runs than he was the year before, like home runs per AB. That was like Trout. I mean, Trout played in 119 games in 2021. No, in 2022. I apologize. He had played in 119 games and he had 40 home runs. I mean, these are numbers that you really don't see, especially from a guy that can also hit for contact, which is also a lie because Judge is doing it right now. But I mean, you look at these teams, you look at these players. I really don't think Votto is. Just to go back to our talk for me to finish up my argument, I don't think Votto is a Hall of Famer. I think he's a Hall of very good. I think he should be a Reds Hall of Famer. I don't think Greinke is. I just don't. And I don't think McCutchen is. I don't think any of them are Hall of Famers, though I do think at least McCutchen will get into the Hall. Most likely. If any of the three of them are, it's going to be McCutchen. In my eyes.
That's fair.
I think Votto is a very close second, but I don't think Zach Greinke sniffs that. Not anymore. I mean, who knows? Scott Rowland got in. Next year's ballot is like Chase Utley. Like Chase Utley is the top liner, who is my favorite player of all time. But
least favorite player of all time.
Yeah. See, that's why he's my favorite. But he does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. There are, I'll say this. I mean, the Basketball Hall of Fame, the Football Hall of Fame. I've never been to the Hockey Hall of Fame, so I could not tell you. But these are Hall of Fames that are, no offense, are easier to get into than the Baseball Hall of Fame. Right?
True.
Thank you. It just takes you, you just need to play like your years, get your points, and that's it. Which is fine. I mean, this is a different sport. Baseball used to be known as like the hardest Hall of Fame to get into. I mean, for good reason. But the hit leader and the home run leader are not in the Hall of Fame.
Well, it's the hardest
for a good
sport.
reason.
It's the hardest sport, in my opinion.
It's the
so
hardest.
It should be.
It has the hardest. Yeah, it has the hardest like activity, but physically, it's not the hardest sport.
Well, hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in sports.
Mentally,
that's what I think.
Bingo. Especially coming out at 100. Now, one of our friends. Why am I blanking on his name right now? That's really embarrassing because I'm going to see him later today. And I'm blanking on his name. Well, one of our friends is a huge baseball fan, and he played at high school, and he actually got to face Jack Leiter.
Really?
He said he could not see the seams. And you see how bad Jack Leiter is in the major league. So, why am I blanking on his name? But yeah. Well, we are coming to the end of our show.
Do we have one more minute? I got one final question.
One final question. Take it.
World Series picks.
I was just going to ask that.
Okay,
amazing. We're on the same page.
Saying,
We've
like,
never been off.
Who's going to win?
Who's gonna play?
Or
who's going to
play?
Yeah.
I would say, as much as they've been struggling, I think I see the Phillies in it.
Okay.
To be completely honest with you,
Yes, sir.
Honestly, this American League could be a little tough, just like actually getting, picking the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to I mean, obviously a Yankee fan. I don't want to.
Yeah.
But I'm a firm believer that the Yankees will make it to the World Series this year. I don't think they're gonna. I think the Phillies are gonna come out on top. To be honest with you.
Okay.
But I think this is their year, just because I think they could beat Cleveland and Houston, Minnesota. Obviously, Yankees always have their number. Houston, I think they're not as good as a team as they used to be, and Baltimore, I think the Yankees could overcome.
It's like Tim said, it's tough for this American League because you got the Yankees sitting at 87-63, who have looked decent recently. As Tim said before, they're winning series. Then you got Baltimore, who's struggling, but we know that they can come around, and all those young pieces that they have in the rotation, and then they have Rutschman, they have Henderson, Colton Cowser, they have all those pieces on the offensive side that can really just smack the ball around. So I think on the American League side, the Yankees will end up making the World Series. And on the National League side, I do feel like Ohtani is going to give the Dodgers that extra edge, and it's going to be a Yankees-Dodgers World Series. And then I think the Dodgers are going to come up on top.
Interesting. Okay. Vincent?
Well, I'm a Phillies fan. I've never seen a better team than this because the Phillies stink most of the time. Although, what we've seen from the playoffs the last couple of years is who's ever hot is going to win it. I mean, Diamondbacks were hot last year. I mean, they didn't end hot, but it was their story in the National League. In the Phillies, the year before, I mean, that was a story with the new playoff setup. I really just think it takes who's ever hot. I mean, right now the Phillies look hot. They're 7-3 in their last 10, but it's really anybody's game. It really is, and that's what I'm so excited about. I mean, for the Mets, for the Phillies, there's a lot of playoff series coming up for them. I mean, the Phillies versus the Braves and the Mets, and the Brewers, which is huge. I think the biggest thing, I still think it won't happen, is I don't see the Dodgers going to the series. I really don't.
Really?
I really don't.
Okay.
But that's my final take, which I feel like I'm leaving you on a cliffhanger. I feel so bad. But we will be back next week with some more walk-off baseball. I'd like to thank you all for listening. I've been Vincent Pacone, joined by Anthony Walsh, Tim David, and Tyler Copen. We will see you next time.